You've probably heard the name Captain Kidd, maybe from a movie, maybe from a treasure map in a kid's storybook, drawn with a dotted line and a red X. He's the pirate everyone knows. But here's what almost nobody knows. He wasn't supposed to be a pirate at all. He was hired to hunt them. And the treasure that made him famous may never have existed the way we think it did. Let's back up. The year is 1696. William Kidd is a respected sea captain living in New York, married into money, attending the same church as the city's elite. He is not an outlaw. He is, by every account, a solid citizen. So why does his name end up carved into legend as one of history's most notorious pirates? That question is where this story really begins. Kidd was given a commission, a privateering license, signed off by powerful men in London, including the king himself. His mission was simple on paper: sail to the Indian Ocean, hunt down pirates who were disrupting English trade, bring back the spoils, split the profits with his wealthy backers, and return home a hero. It should have worked. It didn't.
The voyage was cursed almost from the start. Kidd struggled to find any actual pirates. Months passed. His crew grew restless. Sailors in that era were paid a share of the plunder, not a salary, and a ship with no plunder meant a crew with no pay. Desperation set in. And desperation, historians agree, is what pushed Kidd toward the decision that destroyed him. He attacked a ship called the K-Dog Merchant. It was flying French colors, which technically made it fair game under his commission. But the ship was largely owned by interests connected to the Mughal Empire, one of the most powerful trading partners England had. That single decision triggered a diplomatic crisis. Overnight, Kidd went from privateer to pirate. Not because his actions changed, because the politics around him did.
Word of the Quedagh merchant reached London fast, and it reached the wrong ears. Kidd's voyage had been financed by a group of powerful investors, including a sitting government minister. When news broke that their privateer had attacked a ship tied to Mughal trade interests, those same investors panicked. Suddenly, the men who had signed off on Kidd's mission needed distance from him, not association with him. Political survival required a villain, and Kidd was standing right there, thousands of miles away, unable to explain himself. He sailed back toward the American colonies, believing, astonishingly, that he could clear his name. He stopped in the Caribbean. He stopped in New York. Along the way, he tried to quietly offload cargo and hide portions of it. Not because he saw himself as a criminal fleeing justice, but because he understood that the political tide had turned against him, and he needed something to bargain with. That single choice, treating his goods as leverage rather than simply surrendering them, is the decision that would later fuel centuries of treasure legend.
He was arrested in Boston, shipped to England in chains, and held for over a year before his trial even began. When it finally happened, the trial moved fast, and the verdict felt predetermined. Key witnesses who might have supported his account of events were kept away. Documents that could have backed his defense mysteriously failed to surface in time. Kidd was convicted of piracy, and separately of murder, for striking a crew member with a bucket during a shipboard dispute, an incident that would likely have been treated as a minor disciplinary matter on almost any other voyage. In 1701, he was hanged at Execution Dock, a site on the Thames where the tide would wash over the bodies of condemned pirates 3 times before they were cut down. It was a public message. Don't embarrass the crown.
But here's the part that turned Kidd from a footnote into a legend.
Before his arrest, he supposedly buried treasure somewhere. Gold, jewels, silks, hidden away for safekeeping, meant to be used as leverage during his trial. And that single detail is the reason his name still echoes centuries later. Because buried treasure is irresistible. It's the promise that history isn't finished, that somewhere, right now, something valuable is sitting in the dark, waiting to be found. Writers picked up the thread almost immediately. Washington Irving wrote about Kidd's treasure. Edgar Allan Poe borrowed the idea for the gold bug. Robert Louis Stevenson leaned on it for Treasure Island, the book that basically invented the modern image of pirates. Peg legs, parrots, maps with an X. None of that came from real pirate life. Most of it came from fiction, inspired by a single English privateer's court case.
So what actually happened to the treasure? Author and historian Richard Zacks, who spent years researching Kidd's life for his book, The Pirate Hunter, found something surprising in the trial records. Kidd really did bury a portion of his loot. On Gardiner's Island, off the coast of Long Island, he left goods with a local landowner for safekeeping, apparently believing it would help prove his innocence. That cash was recovered. Authorities dug it up not long after his arrest and shipped it back to England as evidence. So that part of the treasure story, the part historians can actually confirm, has an ending. It wasn't lost. It was found almost immediately, and most of it disappeared into the machinery of the British legal system. But that's not the treasure people go looking for. The story that captured imaginations was the idea of a second, larger cache, hidden somewhere Kidd never disclosed. And for centuries, treasure hunters have chased it. Coastlines from New York to the Caribbean to Madagascar have all had their turn as suspected hiding spots.
In 2015, underwater archaeologist Barry Clifford announced he had located a massive silver bar near St. Marie Island off Madagascar, in the wreck of what he believed was Kidd's ship, the Adventure Galley. Headlines exploded. Was this it? Had someone finally found the legendary hoard? Then came the follow-up. UNESCO sent its own investigators to examine the find. Their conclusion was blunt. The bar wasn't silver at all. It was lead, likely ship's ballast, and the wreck itself showed signs that didn't line up cleanly with the Adventure Galley. The excitement collapsed almost as fast as it had built. It's a pattern that repeats constantly in treasure history. A promising discovery, a wave of headlines, and then a quieter correction that most people never see.
Clifford's Madagascar claim wasn't even the first time the hunt had captured public attention. In the early 20th century, a wealthy adventurer named Hubert Palmer spent a fortune acquiring sea chests supposedly linked to Kidd, convinced they contained hidden compartments with maps to the treasure. Newspapers covered every chest he opened. None of them ever led anywhere. In the 1930s, a self-described psychic claimed she could locate the treasure through dreams and convinced investors to fund a dig on Long Island. Nothing was found there either. Decade after decade, the pattern holds. Someone announces a lead. The public leans in. The lead dissolves under scrutiny. And somehow, the myth walks away from every single failure, completely unharmed. Part of why the legend refuses to die is geography working in its favor. Kidd's actual movements in his final months, sailing the Caribbean, stopping along the eastern seaboard, docking briefly near Long Island Sound, cover a huge stretch of coastline. That gives treasure hunters an enormous canvas to project their hopes onto. Nearly any beach, any island, any rocky cove between the Caribbean and New England can plausibly claim a connection to his route. A myth with a tight, specific location gets tested and closed quickly. A myth with hundreds of miles of plausible hiding spots can survive centuries of failed searches because there's always one more inlet nobody's checked yet. Why does the myth survive corrections like that? Historian Kenneth Kincor, who spent years studying pirate culture and artifacts recovered from actual pirate wrecks like the Whydah, has pointed out something important about how piracy actually worked. Most pirates didn't bury treasure. They spent it, fast, in port towns, on drink and gambling and supplies, because a pirate's life expectancy didn't exactly encourage long-term savings plans. Burying treasure for years was rare, almost non-existent, outside of Kidd's own documented case on Gardiner's Island. The entire genre of buried pirate treasure is mostly built on one real incident, blown up by fiction into a universal pirate behavior. So why do you still feel that pull? That flicker of, what if it's really out there? Psychologists who study reward and anticipation have a term for it: the near-miss effect. Your brain doesn't need the reward itself to feel the rush. It just needs the possibility of the reward to stay alive. Every failed expedition doesn't kill the Kidd treasure myth. It refuels it. Because as long as no one has proven the treasure doesn't exist, some part of the mind insists it still might. Think about what you scroll through on your phone tonight. A lottery ticket in your pocket, a stock you're tracking, a message thread you keep checking, hoping for one specific reply. None of those are buried gold on a Madagascar beach. But the mechanism running underneath is the same one that sent men digging up half of Long Island in the 1800s. The brain doesn't distinguish much between a chest of gold and a notification badge. It just wants the possibility kept open. Casinos understand this better than almost anyone. Slot machines are engineered around near misses on purpose, arranging symbols so that losing spins often land one position away from a jackpot. You didn't win, but your brain registers something closer to almost winning. And almost winning turns out to be a more powerful hook than either a clean win or a clean loss. Kidd's treasure works the same way, across centuries instead of seconds. Each failed expedition is a near miss dressed up as history. Close enough to keep you watching, never close enough to end the story. That's the real inheritance Captain Kidd left behind. Not gold, not silver. A story engineered, almost accidentally, to never fully resolve. A privateer turned scapegoat, hanged for a war of politics he didn't start, whose one confirmed treasure was dug up within weeks of his arrest. And yet, more than 300 years later, people are still walking beaches with metal detectors, still funding expeditions, still convinced the real prize is one shovel strike away.
Maybe that's the more honest treasure map. Not one that points to an island. One that points inward, toward whatever it is you're still hoping might be buried somewhere, waiting for you to be the one who finally finds it. You've probably heard the name Captain Kidd. Now you know the treasure he really left behind wasn't gold. It was a question that refuses to be answered, and a part of your own mind that still wants to keep digging.